21 to 7. There's only one excuse for playing that song on this program. The fact that our next guest, Tony Jones, is celebrating 30 years at Channel 9 News. Good morning to you, Tony.
Good morning. A little ironic you'd play that because I probably blew with Collingwood more than any other club.
Is that right?
I think we're at war at the moment.
Oh, well, I'll go with Damien Tadio's fascinating footy fact. When you started at 9 in 1986 on May whatever, the following Saturday, there was a game between Collingwood and Carlton. And you are now celebrating 30 years, and this weekend there is a game between Collingwood and Carlton.
Yes, that's right. And from your point of view, Hawthorn won the flag in 86, and I remember doing those celebrations.
Tell us, who read the bulletin in 86?
Brian Naylor.
Brian Naylor?
I've only ever read with Brian Naylor and Peter Hitchener. In fact, I've read more with Peter Hitchener than I did with Brian Naylor. But, I mean, talk about nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I mean, nerve-wracking the first day I saw Brian Naylor in the newsroom because he had that real aura about him, didn't he? That real authority about him. And he was a beautiful person. But, yeah, so I read with Brian Naylor, and doing the weather would have been Anne Peacock.
Yeah, I wondered whether it would be Annie.
In fact, I reckon it would have been, it must be Annie's birthday very, very soon because I remember I'd only been there a couple of days and she'd turned 21. Now we know how old Anne Peacock is.
Yeah.
51. Anyway, so...
Please forgive Annie.
Sorry, Annie. And so the John Sorrell made us all wheel a cake into the studio at the end of the weather, and Annie just looked at me as if to say, who the hell are you?
Hugh Nayland is now the news director at Channel 9. Does he take the same approach to directing the news that John Sorrell did?
No one takes the same approach directing the news that John Sorrell did. No, John Sorrell... Now, I need to say from the outset that he was a news genius. I mean, the combination of John Sorrell and Brian Naylor was just unbelievable. I mean, you just wouldn't get a better duo or a more different duo, I've got to say. But gone are the days as a news director when you would go to the pub at 12:30 and come back at 3:30 and toss the rundown on its ear because someone in the pub happened to be talking about the weather more than the budget. Yeah. So, and, you know, if John Sorrell, if he came back and he happened to catch your eye line, well, you were gone. You were gone, you know, and you would just be issued with sort of an array of expletives and all that. But there were no HR departments back then. There was none of that garbage. There was no OH&S and all that crap that we've got now.
Has there been any change in emphasis on reporting news in the last 30 years, do you reckon?
Probably the live element.
Yeah.
I mean, we would never do live crosses. The only time I would do a live cross would be at the VFL Tribunal.
Yeah.
And we would all be there. I think.
Yeah, but that would make sense because there was a player at the VFL Tribunal. We often have a laugh in here when we go to news breaks and we look at the television screens, and poor old Christina Hearn has to stand outside AFL House in minus 10 degrees because there's an AFL story, and we go, well, what's the point of that?
Well, it looks good.
Yeah.
It looks good, and also sometimes you don't have the pictures. And keeping in mind, as far as 6 p.m. goes, we've all got an hour to fill now.
Yeah.
So, and I think the live elements look really good because it just gives you a sense of immediacy. Even though the actual event might have happened some 10 hours earlier, it still gives you that sense of immediacy. And there's a lot of bells and whistles associated with the news nowadays, to answer your question, John. So, but I think the live element is the one that has changed more than anything. And so for dinosaurs like myself, it was such a nerve-wracking thing. I mean, your knees would be knocking doing a live cross. And even now, I get really nervous doing live crosses, whereas you see the kids come in now, you know, the Dougal Beatties and the Neri Ties and, you know, the young reporters that we have in our newsroom, and it's second nature to them. They just don't think about it.
What about your relationship with other people? Was it more of a family was Channel 9 more of a family 30 years ago than it is now?
No, look, it was dog eat dog. It really was, and there was that sense, and it didn't matter what newsroom you were in. We were run by old-time news directors. I mean, think of Lou Grant from the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I mean, that was John Sorrell all over. He had a heart of gold, but he was gruff and he was mean at times. But it was dog eat dog. We were encouraged to brawl with our opponents on the road, and we were encouraged to a certain degree to brawl with our opposition. I mean, when Eddie came over from Channel 10, you know, we weren't exactly mates.
Yeah.
Because we'd been encouraged to, you know, brawl with each other, basically.
We get the sense doing this program now that the competition, particularly between you and Seven at the moment, is pretty fierce.
Yeah, it is, but no more fierce than Carlton and Collingwood on a Saturday. But I'll say this, that if we, you know, tonight, for example, myself and a number of people from the newsroom are going out for drinks. Now, if Channel 7 reporters happen to be there, we'll all be drinking and mingling with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's a couple there that...
That's Melbourne, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, come 6 o'clock, it's on, the gloves are off, and we will do anything, almost, to get the upper hand. But at the end of the day, I don't. Look, I was 2 weeks, not last Saturday night, the Saturday night before, I was texting Peter Mitchell, the Channel 7 newsreader.
Because you're both back for Collingwood?
No, because our sons had played against each other in football. So anyway, so when my son's team plays his team down at the Peninsula in a matter of weeks, then Mitch and I will be doing the scoreboard together.
Tell us, did you start in media at 9?
No, I started at 3&E in Wangaratta.
Right.
And I was there for 9 months, and then Dennis O'Kane, and Mike Fraser was the news director at the time, offered me a job here at 3AW. So I was here working with David Armstrong, Brett McLeod, and a number of others for 12 months, and then the job came up at 3AW.
You've worked under Mike Fraser and John Sorrell.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe I'm still here. Anyway, let's just say it toughened me up a little bit. And then, as I say, the job came up at 9. So, but yeah, it's I didn't spend enough time in radio.
Yeah.
I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
There's a lot of bad television around at the moment, and there's a lot of reality television, and to be honest, there's a lot of crap. But I always think the commercial news services that we are provided with are a really good quality product. That in the midst of everything that goes around, that we are well served by commercial news.
Absolutely, because I think you get a bit of everything. I mean, there are times, and this is one of the great things in the newsroom, is that we do debate, like stories will go to air, and I'll say to Huey, our news director, who's, let me tell you, a genius, and I'm not just saying that because he may be listening, but he is a genius of a man, and also a terrific news director. He's a great people person, and has a great news sense. But there will be times where myself and, say, Andrew Lund, our state political reporter, we will question stories that go to air, saying, "Are you serious? Are you serious? Did we really need 3 minutes on Lady Gaga's new dress?" Yeah. And there will be great debate about it. But you're right. I think the news services in this town, more so than any other town, because I think that we have a broader appeal, are well served. I think you get a bit of everything.
Why do they call you chompers?
My teeth weren't great years ago, and when Channel 9 did the football, I bite my fingernails, so I would chip my teeth, and unfortunately the teeth were quite chipped, and I would never smile on air, never do it. So I thought, no, I'm going to go and do something about this. So I went to a terrific dentist in East Melbourne, and she said, "Look, why don't you get crowns?" So I got crowns, and it was quite noticeable. In fact, I remember the first time
You got
they
crowns,
did it.
haven't you been there?
Oh, 1 or 2.
Yeah, and they're good. Look at that smile. That's good. That's like
a smile off.
chomp off. So I only got one at a time done. So I actually got the 2 front ones done. I remember I was doing the news from Melbourne Park, and Peter Hitchener threw to me and said, "Now it's sport, here's Tony Jones." And I said, "Thanks, Pete, coming up after the break." And I'd never smiled before, so I thought, I'm going to give it a go. So I smiled, and I checked my phone in the ad break, and I had 2 missed calls from my wife, and I thought, God, what's happened at home? Anyway, so I rang, I said, "Everything all right?" She said, "For God's sake, do not smile. Do not smile. You look like Bugs Bunny." So anyway, the idiots at the other mob, they decided to call me Chompers.
Right.
And unfortunately it stuck.
There was a man who preceded you on air at Channel 9 who was known for many, many years as the king, and he probably was the king of television, Graham Kennedy. Was he still at Channel 9 when you started?
He did, not at GTV. He was at TCN. They resurrected him doing...
Blankety blanks, wasn't it?
No, that was at 10, and that would have been in the 70s and early 80s. But they had Australia's Funniest Home Videos, which I could never believe he did that show. Wow. So he did that, started that off. But then he went on to the late night news, Coast to Coast, which he started with Ken Sutcliffe, and then John Mangos took over from, and that was unbelievable.
Yeah, that was funny.
I mean, he would come back and comment on stories the way we would love to comment on stories now. It was terrific. I don't think I ever met him. I never met him. I would have loved to have, though.
Tony, congratulations on your career. You're very youthful looking for a man who's been in television for 30 years, I've got to say. Congratulations.
It's the Chompers.
And we'll be watching you tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.